just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Escorted. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. Anytime you can start a show talking about someone being escorted from their job in the middle of a football season, you can bet your bippy we're going to start there. And it turns out that Robert Saleh was escorted out of the building on a random Tuesday morning while Dan was live on the air with an NFL insider scurrying with her phone, trying to figure out what happened, what's next. Stu Gatz attempting to say, oh, I knew about this. Did he know? Who's going to be next? Proposing Nathaniel Hackett. Turns out he barely kept his job. So all this is happening in real time. And all I kept picturing, and it came out later, is that he was escorted right from his desk. No time to pack anything. Family photos? Forget it. Playbooks? Obviously not. Right to the car.
You love when people get fired. You're radiant. You are post-coital. You are post-coital because someone got fired and escorted to their car, and you love when people get canned. I know what a bippy is, but I don't know the origins of the word. When you say bet a bippy, what is that?
It's a different origin than getting off the schneid, which it turns out is not Yiddish at all. It's about gin rummy. Who knew? Bippy, I do a few things that are inside Nothing Personal jokes, and I love that Dan has been here this week and is willing to bring us into the fold here at Meadowlark. Not more than 20 months since I've been here. And
thank you for tolerating yesterday's turbulence, incidentally. Welcome to my world when your audience gets agitated about you welcoming someone into your intimate space and then your fans getting angry when he or I do something to upset them and you.
I do recognize that it is difficult for you to be a part of that. And I understand that the audience is everything to you. My audience is everything to me, and having you share in it makes me smile.
The audience is not everything to me, though I do respect our customers a great deal. But if it were everything to me, then you would not actually be around because the turbulence of it has been enough, stronger than just about any personality we've ever welcomed into our world. But I value you as a talent. I value your insight, and I love you. So any turbulence any hiccups that there are pale in comparison to that.
Well, thank you for that. I'm touched. The thing about turbulence is that isn't it better than apathy? You could surround yourself with a bunch of neutral characters or neutral personalities who don't move the needle. I think that I'm hopeful is what Nothing Personal in our audience brings.
Make people feel something. In sports especially, the worst thing that your customers can feel is indifference, not caring. If they're angry, if they're filled with just
rage,
hostility, they're feeling something, and it means they still care.
The Jets fans have struggled. To be a Jets fan, I live it and see it with Stu Gatz and with many of my friends. 123 Brett lives and dies with the Jets. And I watch him every season, and he's a Jets-Mets combo. So they just expect bad things. But Aaron Rodgers was supposed to be the difference maker, and he's been, to me, nothing but a distraction with no benefit on the field. 4 snaps in last year, out. Comes back, some illusion there's going to be a Super Bowl. And then there's immediate, what could be manufactured issues between Rodgers and Saleh. Some sort of eyes, a lot of eye-glancing still photos that happen on the internet these days. And out of nowhere, it turns out that Rodgers wins a power struggle where I would never want a player to win a power struggle.
Well, you are a management shill, and you are always pro-management, so I understand how it is that you would arrive at thinking that organizations win, but that organization has been a laughingstock for a long time. He represents a hope at the position that they very rarely had. And when you said with no benefit on the field, that's not entirely true. I know they've lost the last 2 games, and they've lost the last 2 games at the very end of those games, but right before that small sample, he had been converting third downs at a 50+% clip when last year with Zach Wilson, they were at a 20%. So they were best in the league when they used to be worst in the league. And if he just gives them that all season, if that's all he gives them, that's actually enough to make them a playoff team and relevant. And so because this is a win now season, because they're all in on we've got to win with a 40-year-old quarterback right now, they make a move before any other team in the league would make a move when they're one game out of first place.
It's not that early to make the move because I always tell people do the math with where you are in a football season and compare it to a baseball season when you fire a manager.
It's just earlier than anyone else.
So
they've done it
he's
quicker.
first.
Yeah, he's first, and they're 2-3. And like I said, they're this far from being 4-1. Like if Aaron Rodgers is the Aaron Rodgers that he's been in the past, if they make a field goal, if they make a makeable field goal, an inside a 50-yard field goal 2 weeks ago, they're 3-2, and they're number one. They're tied for the lead in the division.
So one of the things that happens when you fire your coach is that either there's an acute issue. An acute issue is when the coach does something that is inexcusable. It could be something related to an arrest, something related to disrespect to the owner, something that a third rail for an in-season firing because it can happen to a first-place team or a last-place team. So that's a possibility. We don't know. Or the other possibility is the old underperformance bucket. The underperformance bucket, and Woody Johnson is running to that bucket by saying, this is probably the best team I've had in 25 years. Of course, that is funny for owners to say because when you fire someone or need to fire someone, the PR people running give you talking points. So the talking point isn't we're playing for first place next Monday. It isn't that we're doing so well on third downs. It's that we do nothing but underperform. He said, I thought that we would get the most out of this team, give us the best chance that we all want to have by making this change.
The Jets fan has an expectation this year. It is a very dangerous thing, David, to have a life of hopelessness as they have had. Generations of Jets fans have not had very many reasons to hope. And this season, they hope. That team is an above-average football team. You look at their point differential. They're not the Dolphins. The Dolphins have the second worst point differential in the league. Only Carolina is worse.
Well, they never score.
That's part of the
it's hard
problem.
to.
But Aaron Rodgers is there to score, and he doesn't even have to score that much. I gave the stats yesterday on our show. Since 2021, Robert Saleh's defense is top 3 in all of the good metrics that you want to have. This is not a defensive problem. Aaron Rodgers has to be something close to what Aaron Rodgers has been for the expectations to be met in New York.
I don't believe that Woody Johnson was planning to do this. And the reason I say that is he's never fired a coach in the interim during the season. Just never done it. And he gave another quote that is interesting, but I want to go to the interim coach. If you know you're firing someone, and we've done in-season firings, you speak to who's next. It's not like you fire your manager and then knock on the coach's door and you look around and you say, hey, come here, come in my office. We're going to have you as the interim manager. It doesn't work that way at all. The interim manager, who may have been your third base coach, which is the equivalent of the defensive coordinator or your bench coach, is told in advance. And they always pretend they're upset because they're loyal to their manager. So in my mind, it's funny because Jeff Ulbrich was loyal to Robert Saleh. But then the minute they're out the door, they meet the media and they go right into his fault. He did this. Listen to what Ulbrich said. We're not playing to our potential. We're too talented to be putting the product we put out there the last couple of weeks. We've been underperforming for whatever the reason, and we're going to take a hard look at all of it.
A hard look is being taken.
It's unbelievable. This is what Woody Johnson thinks is the best plan for his best team.
This part is super interesting to me, and you can speak to this. Baseball and football are vastly different. I'm always interested in football being sort of a military school for millionaires. So they don't feel like in the middle of the season that they can go get Vrabel or Belichick, which would immediately excite their audience because it would be a name and all of a sudden you're doubling down on all our chips are in the middle of the table. But it's because you'd have to blow out the entirety of your coaching staff and all of the preparation. It's such a preparation sport. You'd have to blow out everybody and allow Belichick to either work with the people he wants to or foist upon someone like Belichick or Vrabel an entire staff of people that he's never worked with, and they're not equipped to do that. Don't you imagine that Jets fans would be a lot more excited today if they just the sexiness of a name as opposed to, oh, we're just rearranging deck chairs?
Do you think that this firing was because of the fans trying to satisfy them, trying to satisfy Stugotz?
It's the expectations attached to we're all in on a 40-year-old quarterback.
They're playing for first place on Monday.
Yeah, but I don't
So the
believe
timing.
I don't believe most people listening to this think that the Jets are as good as the Bills, that the Jets are as formidable as the Bills. The Bills have been one of the top 4 teams in the league each of the last 4 years.
But are they now after the coaching change?
No, they are not. But
So-
you know how this works. You make changes just because they're changes.
Football's harder to do that. It's harder to do that because you're not really changing anything. And if Saleh was going to demote Hackett, which was the big thing, he's not going to do the play calls, or maybe I was going to fire him, and then, oh no, I'm fired instead. What exactly is Ulbrich going to do? He's going to go in, and he already said, yeah, we're going to take a long look at what we're doing with play calling.
What is going to happen here, and this part, David, must make you as insane as a management person, okay? LeBron James taught all of these guys throughout sports the power that an individual economy has when you're a superstar in sports. It's easier to do in basketball, where one player matters like that, and the stars aren't wearing masks. But Tom Brady realized it and left Belichick. He's like, wait a minute, I don't have to do it the way that organizations always do it, where we smother the star. We don't want the star in our sport to have the power that stars should have. Everything that's happened in New York, and this is just the latest example. It's Aaron Rodgers going to Egypt during training camp. Aaron Rodgers is running that organization.
That was pre-planned.
Aaron Rodgers, all of this is pre-planned. Aaron Rodgers having the power is why he was willing to leave Green Bay, seizing the power that these people have, because it's a salary cap sport. Technically, they're all underpaid because they'd all make more if these rich owners actually had to fight to get a quarterback when there are only like 12 good ones in the entire league. And they've all realized that instead of dollars or on top of dollars, what they can get is power.
I think he had the power in Green Bay. I don't agree.
Oh, he
that
did
came
not.
to the Jets
They
to
wouldn't
all of a
have
sudden
drafted his
power.
replacement over his objections if he had that power. They wouldn't have drafted his replacement without consulting with him if the power was as real as it seems to be in New
I will
York.
tell you that Aaron Rodgers has the power because all of what Woody Johnson is saying, and Connor Hughes of SNY came out with something that was pretty interesting, that saying that Johnson made the final decision Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning. That's yesterday morning. So in all the firings I've done, when it's your manager, it doesn't really work like that.
Well, final decision doesn't mean he hadn't been thinking about it for weeks or the offseason.
Well, you're always thinking about firing your manager. Anytime you lose a game, that's the first thing. Who do I trade? Who do I demote? Who do I fire? Any game. But he makes the final decision, and then all of a sudden, you've got yourself an interim coach. I for one, and I didn't check the DraftKings odds. Coke, I don't know if you did. Did the Jets Super Bowl odds even move?
Let me correct you on
$1?
something. Let me correct you on something when you say that he had the same power in Green Bay. Green Bay for 30 years has known what it's like to have total stability at the quarterback position. The last 30 years of Jets quarterback play, the best have been Mark Sanchez and Chad Pennington, a little bit of Brett Favre.
Richard Todd?
What it is, Richard Todd is a 1979 reference, and he's not as good as any of the guys that I just mentioned.
The only one I could think
who
of.
aren't actually that good. Aaron Rodgers came to a city where they were quarterback starved and a team where they were quarterback starved. It's different than what was in Green Bay, where they inherited Aaron Rodgers after 15 years of Favre.
So stability means there's an inverse correlation to stability and power.
Desperation means that you will give away your soul in order to get a name to put on the back of the jersey at that position.
The Jets, who have not been to a Super Bowl in 1968, by the way, that's the year we were born. So that makes – and I still view the Dolphins actually as a worse franchise only because of all my years living here. They never won a playoff game.
The Dolphins were the winningest franchise in all of sports through the Marino Shula years. It wasn't just football. They were the winningest by percentage. That it predates you by a generation. They did nothing but lose while you were here, so you have no memory of this entire sports town being built around their excellence.
Oh, I lived it. I have no memory. I came into when I moved here trying to establish myself with the Marlins. All you ever heard, it wasn't even Heat back then. It was just Dolphins, Dolphins, Dolphins. And I kept saying, what? I would talk to the first thing Wayne Huizenga, side note, Coca, the first thing Wayne Huizenga ever said to me, he used to own the Panthers, the Dolphins, and the Marlins in this market. He's passed away, an interesting character, not beloved, which is strange because I would argue that he's probably the most important sports figure in the history of Miami.
It's funny that you don't see why he's not beloved, given that he tore apart a champion exactly the way that you did, which is part of the reason you're not beloved.
That's absolutely not what happened with the Marlins.
Actually, he tore it apart even quicker and faster than you guys
He actually said, so this is such great revisionist history that people have. In 1997, he went public and said, win or not, if we don't get a stadium, we're trading the players.
No one believed him.
And no one believed him. And he did it. He wanted to build Wally's World here, Wayne's World, right in.
He wanted to put a Disney World in South Florida, right around the football stadium. But the reason
which they've done now,
it bankrupted the Robbie family. He helped bankrupt the Robbie family. But the reason he's not beloved is right there, because they traded when the team was at the White House celebrating its championship. Moises Alou was at a racetrack in the Dominican yelling about how it is that he had been betrayed because they traded a champion before they landed on the ground after jumping up in the air to celebrate it.
And who would have thought that he would have been involved in a play for the next Marlins championship? Life's funny in that way. I want to talk about one final thing with Woody Johnson and Robert Saleh. So Jets fans are going to be walking around today. And I'm interested, are they coming in happy? Are they coming in relieved? Are they thinking that Aaron Rodgers is going to perform better under any new scheme or any new play caller? When you fire a coach midseason or a manager midseason, when you meet your team after, what you're trying to say is it's the same locker room. We have the same players. There's nothing changed. Try harder. That's really the message that we're giving them so we can look good for the move we made. Because if the Jets finish 6-11 or 7-10, then Woody Johnson has egg on his face because it did nothing.
Oh, but I believe that everyone listening to this can take inventory of the entirety of their lives and say to you how much fun it is to just find someone to blame. What they have today is a face that got escorted to the parking lot and was like, it's his fault. He's the reason that all of this was happening. And here, go back to hoping. You can hope something new is coming because we found a person to blame.
So brilliant. I love it. Assigning blame is so important.
But you love firing people. Like, why does this make you so happy? Him escorted to his car by security.
First of all, stop with that.
It was your
we
first
escort
word.
Everybody. So I wanted to make sure people know this wasn't a big deal to escort Saleh. When you fire somebody, they get escorted out. You don't get to take anything. I don't care if you're a ticket person or if you are the manager.
He should be allowed to go through his desk, take the family pictures.
You may not.
Come on.
We box it up for you. We actually have people, they come in because you've got Ulbrich moving in within 10 minutes.
Come on.
We have people on retainer ready to clean, box, tape, clean, boom.
Give him a few minutes to grab some things, some personal items.
So here's a funny thing. You can't even go to the bathroom.
Oh, God.
I'm just letting you know what the reality is. No bathroom.
Look at how pleased it makes
you.
No,
I'm trying to inform people.
You love to inhibit freedoms. You love to escort people to their cars. You love to be.
I've done that once, actually.
You love to be
scared.
so powerful that you send someone out and don't even let him take his thing.
I escorted a couple people, and I did have security with me. I want to switch to what you do if you're a Jets fan. We had this discussion in the studio yesterday where it is a bizarre thing in the New York world. When you're Jets, you're Mets. Jets and Mets are generally the combo. Jessica said that she knows a ton of people who are Yankees and Jets. I never had met anyone like that in my life, but obviously there are people. But Jets, Mets. And so the Jets, Woody Johnson knows this. And we were always in competition with the Dolphins and the Heat, pretending we weren't and pretending we were rooting for them. Woody Johnson doesn't want the Mets to succeed. He doesn't want Steve Cohen under any scenario to make things better.
You always say this, and I am not certain that what you're saying is so.
Because no one will tell you the truth.
There is plenty of room in New York for multiple fan bases and multiple sports dollars to be spent in many different places.
Pettiness of owners would shock you.
Well,
it
that
would
that
shock
would not look. The pettiness of adult males will never surprise me. I believe that everything is high school. Everything, even if you're in your 50s, never mind your 50s. Jerry Jones is keeping Robert Kraft out of the Hall of Fame. In your 80s, everything is high school. But I do believe in pettiness, and I do believe adult males, especially in sports, especially rich ones, can be hugely immature. But I also believe in the idea that you can enjoy the success of others. It is possible to not hate all the time.
So schadenfreude is a word that you know about, and that is happiness at the misfortune of others, which is a far more common way to be. As a matter of fact, Dan, you talk about it on your show all the time, that people are never happy for the successes of their coworkers.
I
think you say that.
I am someone who has noticed over the many years in sports that, yes, there can be great delight in rooting against others, and hating can indeed be fun. I am simply saying that your universal thinking that you're the only truth teller on every franchise in a city is rooting against all the other sports franchises. I believe that
unless they own the other franchise.
I believe that that's not entirely accurate. I don't believe that the Miami Heat is out here actively rooting for everybody else in the market to fail when the Panthers are winning the championship.
Be that as it may, the Mets are now finding themselves one game away from the league championship series. The New York bleeping Mets going against the best team that I thought in baseball. I had them going to the World Series after my original World Series pick.
Why past tense? They only need to win a couple of games. Why are you already doing had? I had as if they're going to be eliminated because they're on the brink.
They're on the brink. Here's the thing that I am a big believer in. I'm a big believer in small sample size momentum. And the Mets have that feeling. There's a strange thing that you look at inside your clubhouse, and you're looking around. I got a story. Side note, I got a Mike Mordecai story, a quick one for you. He would go into the clubhouse all the time, and he would say, look, we're about to win now. We're going to find a mistake, and we're going to win. He never thought we'd lose, and we came back and won so many games. The Mets have that. The Mets.
So do the Padres, so do the Royals, so do the Tigers. There are a lot of teams of destiny until the end when there's one.
There's always only one, but each series I can evaluate, and I can look at this Mets-Phillies series, and I can look at the way Bryce Harper had an opportunity, 3 of them, to make a difference in the game, and he got a single at the end of the game, too little, too late. And I'm looking at JT Realmuto, who I barely recognize. I barely recognize him right now offensively. I'm looking at Trey Turner, who – again, is not peak Trey Turner by any stretch. Schwarber is so popular because he's a goofy leadoff guy who hits home runs, but he's not your prototypical leadoff guy. When you have to lead with the stat, hey, he's got the most home runs of any leadoff guy.
They're still a good team, David. They've
I
lost
love
lost 2 out of 3 games to a team that's also very good.
See, I don't view the Mets as very good. I view them as very good right now. And in the playoffs, very good right now is enough.
But you say very good right now. They've been very good for 2.5 months.
One of the best teams in baseball for that period of time.
It ain't 3 games.
But going into this playoffs and the way that they had to clinch it, I am merely telling you that as I'm watching the game and I'm watching Pete Alonso hit home runs and again, I'm just picturing Scott Boras loving life because trying to parlay this into an extra 50 or 100 million in free agency.
It's such a shitty way to watch sports that you sit there
and
you're counting you're counting Scott Boras's money as Pete Alonso hits some of the biggest homers in Mets history.
I've watched games with agents and they do that. So this comes from experience. This is not me being cynical.
No, but what a cold way to watch sports, sitting there just counting the dollars that overtly.
What do you think GMs are doing? What do you think managers? We're all watching it. It's like people working in the hot dog factory. You don't eat the hot dogs.
Okay, but you can go to the bar or the nightclub and enjoy the fact that the music is there and people are dancing and there's the whiff of sensuality everywhere. Or you could just listen to the cash register or I guess it's not even a cash register anymore. I guess
that was
you
an
could.
Old reference.
Yes, I guess you could just watch. You could watch on your
taps.
iPad. You could watch on your iPad the way that the transactions take place. It's a ridiculous way to watch sports.
I'm trying to think of an owner of a company who sits there and enjoys what the company does and is not focused on the results.
Well,
of the
you
company.
say
And
this.
I can't
but
think of
you,
one.
You say this, but
What about you?
I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the money of this company. I do not. And I would say to you that rich people, specifically in ownership, treat these things as toys. So, like, yeah, they want the business to succeed, but all sports teams make money. Like, all of them appreciate in value. They're not sitting around there looking at their toy and saying at every turn, oh, we went up by 3% in appreciation this month.
I was the president, not the owner, so I agree. They don't look at it as a toy, because it's a toy that if all of a sudden it gets too costly on an annual basis, they don't want to play with that toy anymore. But I agree that I'm not talking about owners. I'm talking about operators. I was an operator. It's a very different thing. And an operator of a nightclub is not in the middle of the dance floor rubbing up against people.
But your job was specifically, I don't know that you had a more important job than assigning and maintaining value. Your particular job was number one thing on how your performance was rated, where your self-worth was, was how much value are you creating?
Which, of course, informs why when I'd be watching Pete Alonso hit home runs, what I'm thinking about is, what does this do to his value?
But when you're in Yankee Stadium winning the title, that's not the first thought. Surely it's high on your list of, oh my God, we're going to make so much money, but it's not the first reason for the joy. It's not, David.
I one day maybe I'll write a book, but nothing personal has become my book. The first thing I thought of when we beat the Cubs to win the pennant, the single first thing I thought of, and I remember because I took note of this, is that our coaching staff was going to be the coaching staff for the All-Star game the next year. That was the first thing that popped in my head. When we won the World Series, the first thing that popped into my head is that Bud Selig is going to have to give the trophy to Jeffrey Loria. I was standing there watching Posada get tagged by Beckett, and instead of hugging who I was with or running on the field or running to the dugout, I was thinking about the trophy handoff and how awkward that was going to be.
So not money, though. You were delighting in the humor of the commissioner of baseball having to give the trophy to someone.
I viewed it as concern.
Concern
because I didn't want Bud to embarrass Jeffrey, because Bud never got a trophy, and I didn't want him to hand it over with disdain and contempt, and I didn't succeed very well. Because if you go back and look at that trophy ceremony, it's handed over like, and congratulations to you for winning the World Series. And I think he put some sort of oil and grease on the bottom of the commissioner's trophy. Didn't want to give it over.
This is instructive, and we'll get to all the other stuff that you want to get to. But to me, your job was so much about pleasing Jeffrey Loria, who was the owner of the team, that it breaks my heart that in what would have been or should have been a moment of joy, that concern is what swept over you, because you had to take care of this toddler, this giant rich toddler who needed to get the trophy a certain way.
I view it that was my job. I view my job was to think about all those things when you're an operator. I mean, one of the great conversations we have is what your job is. Your job is the leader of the Dan Le Batard Show and then the leader of Meadowlark Media. It requires you to play different parts that you don't like playing.
No, I wish it was just about the joy in the game. If it were just about the joy in the game,
my case.
Yes, it should be about the joy in the game. But that my example is a bad one, because I'm not built like many of the people that you're talking about,
which manifests itself on a daily basis. So the criticism or the thought of, I'd rather there be understanding maybe of why operators have to do it that way. And for example, San Diego's hosting a game, and they have to worry about sending a note to their season ticket holders, which is always funny because the majority of people in the stadium are not season ticket holders. But anyway, the Padres sent a note to the season ticket holders, behave. It was like a Sam Weish moment. We are not L.A. We are not going to throw things on the field. We are going to behave, and then we're just going to kick their ass.
The Dodgers, and I mentioned yesterday when we were talking, I really think they have a big problem, and it's not because of momentum inside of a series. It's because they're hurt and because they get the grand slam from Hernandez. They get a couple of hits from Betts. Freeman is out there trying his best, overly medicated, and they lose anyway. And we talked yesterday about how one of the differences in the team is that Soto is not there, but what we didn't talk about enough is Tatis is there. He's the best player on that team, and he's so flamboyant and fun, and he's got a chance to erase the disgrace of last year when in that clubhouse and all around that city, they were really mad at him for taking a season of expectation and tanking it. by being the best player in that series, in a series that includes Ohtani, he's got a real chance to erase some of the damage he did last year.
He wants to so badly. I don't think they'll ever make him the face of baseball again. I think that that's something that Commissioner Manfred decided already, that we want him to be good, but we're not willing to ever go back. Because remember, before the suspension for steroids, he was the face of baseball.
Usually the face of baseball or the voice of baseball has to be an American who speaks English very well. Usually it's not international players fighting through what sometimes is their second language.
And now we have Ohtani as the face of baseball. And Ohtani actually, after the 3-run homer in game 1, he's had 2 straight games that were not good enough. And if you're the DH and you're not getting on base, Betts actually got a couple hits, but Freeman shouldn't be playing. I don't think he'll be in the lineup today. We'll wait to see. I doubt the Dodgers have released their lineup, Coca, way too early in the day. But
it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure Dave Roberts is thinking about what it is that he wants to do.
Andrew Freeman likely knows the decision. They likely would go to the players. One thing that you do is you go to the player the night before every time. They don't walk in. That's a funny visual. A player walks into a playoff game. Hey, I'm in the lineup. No, they're always told that they're in the lineup and where they're hitting in the lineup so they can be ready.
Let me ask you this question as someone who's very good about assessing the talent of people. Have you seen a lot of players ever at the size of Tatis who have that kind of bat speed, that kind of, not the Vlad Guerreros of the world. I'm talking about someone that thin that you sort of understand, oh, I get why he used performance enhancers, because his body is something that looks lithe.
I don't view – if you've seen Tatis shirtless, he's not – that's like saying Juan Pierre small. He's cut, ripped, but they get covered in uniforms. It's a weird thing.
But Juan Pierre, I know he had the 4% body fat and would work out 8 hours a day, but he is a player. I'm not saying that he's Guillermo Mota. I'm not saying that he's super skinny.
Dodger fans know him.
But I also another steroid guy, another suspension guy. I'm just saying that I've rarely seen that kind of bat speed, that kind of opposite field power from somebody that size.
What about Mookie Betts?
Same kind of thing.
But does he not seem slighter than Tatis?
He seems.
Shorter.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what their height and weight is.
Looking at them, I
think both of them as like 160 pounds is when I see them.
I'm terrible at that. The carnival guessing of weight. I've never been good at that. I don't know what Tatis weighs in real life. I know that for the media guides, when we had to do height and weight of players,
all lies,
we let them tell us what their height and weight was. We kept track of everybody's weight, and we would measure everyone during physicals in spring training. But in the media guide, what we did, what did we care? If you want to be Charles Barkley and be 6'5", be 6'5". So what is it, Coca? 6'3", 217. I like that. They choose like did they choose that right before going to the restroom or right after? Do they want to get lower? Do they want to be bigger? I'm always trying to do something before I go to my annual checkup to be down, not up.
So you're going to the bathroom. You're actively going to the bathroom.
Planned. I know exactly.
Diuretics.
I know exactly what my meal's going to be pre-doctor.
Who, Tatis is 6'3", 217, or Betts is 6? Who? What?
Oh, Tatis.
That's crazy to me.
Wait, did you think he was taller or shorter?
No, that's much bigger than I look at him and see. That is 217 is crazy. I would have guessed that he was like 190.
What's Betts then? We're going to find out what Betts is while I'm doing the next thing that I can't wait to do with you, because one of my least favorite things I have to do, because this is nothing personal. And after the break, we're going to review a movie with Dan that Dan hasn't seen yet. But the topic of it is good. Do we not need to break? Okay, we're just going to go straight through. All right, Coca, relax. We'll start that again. Coca's mad. He gets so angry when I make mistakes like that. 12/18/69. I want to talk about a movie that I watched. And I don't like doing it with Dan here, who hasn't seen the movie, but it's a topic we can all talk about. And it's a movie that got a ton of attention, and it's available for streaming now. So I spent the $19.99. And it's called It Ends With Us. And I don't mind spending the $19.99 for first-rate movies that are recently streaming.
You do the rationale of if I had to go to the theater to do this, it would be more expensive.
How is that a rationale? It's a factual statement.
But it's also what I do in order to spend $19.99 when I shouldn't spend $19.99, because I can wait a couple of weeks to get it for $5.99. I don't need to see it right then. I don't have to see it right then.
So now you're talking about the 14
sometimes
bucks.
I would say very often I choose to just wait. I don't very often spend full price on a movie to either buy it immediately or spend $15 more than I should.
Are you the type when the choice is to rent it for $19.99 or buy it for $24.99? Which do you do?
I would rent it. I don't need to buy or own
for the
any
extra
of
$5,
those
bucks,
movies.
that's the value proposition. I buy it.
I rarely spend either one of those sums. If I'm looking to rent a movie, I will do it for $5.99, $4.99. I very rarely do the buying.
There's often a correlation between the cost of the rent and the greatness of the movie. So if it's a real first-rate movie, they're going to get $19.99.
I don't need to see things immediately. I can wait a couple of weeks.
But we review something every day on
I
Nothing
have
Personal.
patience. There are plenty to choose from, David. You don't have to do any. Yes, I know you review something every day, but there are plenty of others that have been made throughout the history of cinema that would allow you to review them without having to need the one that was $19.99 last night.
So, side note about this, I've been spoken to about this concept by people in my life who wonder about the decisions I make with money, thinking that that is a waste. And I view it as the opposite. I view it as business expense because it is. But B, I view it as this is giving people. I had an argument with my son about this because he believes, like many others, that there are sites, and he doesn't do it, that there are sites where you can get first-rate movies for 0.00.
Both things can be true, though. It could be a wasteful business expense. It is a wasteful business
The
expense.
people making the movies deserve the $19.99. It's the reason I watch through the credits of every movie. These people are entertaining me. They deserve their flowers. They deserve the money that I'm giving them because it's like with songs. I do Apple Music, but I also buy individual songs.
What a great way to wrap your impatience in a noble morality.
It is exactly the thought process because I'm looking for noble moralities
You're
at
just
every
impatient.
turn.
You just are used to getting what you want immediately upon wanting it the entirety of
true.
your life. It's not because you're trying to support Blake Lively. Such
Darn it.
nonsense. The
I had
arts.
it.
He's so interested in the arts.
I am actually interested in the arts.
Spotify is robbing these artists.
Justin Timberlake. What's the name of that? It was Sean Parker. I can't even think of the name of what he started. That started Napster. Was it Napster? I don't think
It was
Coca's heard. We've
fighting. It
lost
was
Coca.
fighting Napster.
I think
It was
Coca walked out.
fighting. What you're claiming is that every time you spend $19.99 is because you are railing against what Ticketmaster has done to the artist, what
100%.
Spotify has done to the artist.
And I need to watch It Ends With Us, which ended up being a war between the director and Blake Lively. Blake Lively thought it would be this great, fun movie. It's about domestic violence. I hated it. And I hated it not because it was a poorly made movie. It made me so uncomfortable watching the domestic violence, knowing it came from a book which I hadn't read, because why read the book when you can see the movie? And then knowing how Blake Lively did the PR for this, where it was this fun romantic comedy. There was no comedy. There was no romance. There was domestic abuse. And then the internet got her, and then she stopped. And that ruined, very rarely does off-the-field action ruin my ability to enjoy on the field.
How do you
It happens
feel
here.
about movies making you uncomfortable and sinking into the discomfort instead of the fairy tale? Because I watched the trailer for this and it was all the love music, and then all of a sudden there's whatever, the sound of glass shattering and the violence makes an appearance. But it was a love story that then showed you how it is that love can turn ugly when passion goes askew.
So from my standpoint, I don't watch horror. I don't like being uncomfortable. My movies are to find my emotion and to escape. And I'm watching It Ends With Us, and I have restless legs. I can't sit still. I didn't get up in the middle of the movie and walk out. I don't do that.
So how do you feel about like the movie Seven, for example? Because Hollywood tends to do all the focus groups that suggest people don't want dark and uncomfortable with their movies. I just want movies that make me feel. I don't, as long as you reach in and grab something, I don't care if it's discomfort. In fact, one of the most uncomfortable movies I've ever seen is Ryan Reynolds is just buried alive. I think the movie is called Buried, and the whole thing is shot
in a casket.
Is in a casket, and I'm like crawling around in my skin, but I love that it made me feel that.
Those are the type of movies you watch one time. It Ends With Us. I would suggest to the audience, you can pass. I'd like you to think about domestic violence. I cannot. It's one of the few things. I keep a list of things in my head of things that are inexplicable to me. And we touched on it a little in your show about things that I wouldn't tolerate in terms of ways to die. I really have a hard time understanding why a man would ever hit a woman, ever.
I think
no matter how angry you are, and I don't understand the sickness. I do understand battered woman syndrome. I've done a ton of reading about that concept because I used to be ignorant about it, and I was the one who would say, just leave. What the hell's wrong with you?
But I
of
think
course that's not the case.
So much of this stuff is hand-me-down through generations of patterns and learning. I'm thinking that the grand majority of people listening to this have been at least adjacent to either domestic abuse or sexual abuse somewhere within their inner circle. I don't think it's
statement.
I don't think there's a lot of people listening to this, maybe not talked about, maybe not out in the open because it's such a repressed dark secret that families push into the corners and it's not discussed enough. But I doubt there are very many people listening to this that haven't been in some way adjacent to this in both things, either domestic abuse or sexual abuse somewhere in their lives.
It is the ultimate place of discomfort for me. And this movie just hit it straight on. I didn't get the feeling like with The Accused or with other movies where the sexual abuse is so front and center. For whatever reason, this one got to me in a way that was unpleasant. Can't transition to another level of unpleasant, but there is a level of unpleasant that's coming to Florida today. And it's coming right now. Hurricane Milton, I believe it's right offshore in Tampa. It has brought me back to my years of living in Miami where we would live one hurricane to the next and worried about it. And people would call when the hurricane was in Tampa and say, hey, are you okay? And I said, I'm in Broward. And it's funny because the rest of the country sort of views it as, oh, it's not in my backyard, so I don't need to worry about it. Pass the broccoli. That's our expression on Nothing Personal for people who look at world events and they get upset for a moment and then they say, pass the broccoli. And then they move on to the next thing. I want to stop that, and I've been trying for years to stop it. I've got a new idea, which is there's going to be a lot of people as of tonight and tomorrow who have a lot of problems in the Tampa area because of this hurricane. Just as there are a lot of people still in North Carolina who are suffering unbelievable property damage because of Helene. So
this is going to be a good deal worse. And
in terms of the billions of dollars of damage?
Well, I'm not even talking about the dollars. I'm simply talking about the horror that is about to hit the coast of Florida that is going to be, waves and storm surge. Beyond the wind, David. The wind will twist metal and homes into the sky. This is going to be the ocean eating up land in a way that just erases homes that are one story high because the waves, what we're talking about is the ocean coming to consume the area near Tampa.
It's amazing empathy that you're able to have because my thoughts have been this whole week is, will it get to the 36th floor? And what will the storm surge be? Will there be no power in the Elser? How will it impact me? And I found that level of selfishness to consume me. And when it moved away and it's not going to be as bad, I found myself relieved.
Pass the broccoli.
So I passed the broccoli. So here's what I'd like to do. If you go right now to davidsamsonpodcast.com, you will see that if you buy any merch, we have Nothing Personal merch. It's great merch. I see you guys all send me pictures of you wearing it. davidsamsonpodcast.com. Buy merch before Sunday night. And all net proceeds, we're going right to hurricane relief. All of them. So please get on there. And if you're right now watching live on Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, it's about 43 after the hour, or you're on DraftKings Network, where it's also roughly 43 after a different hour. I would say now, buy it right now because we'll get notified and maybe you'll get a surprise. Maybe I'll send you a little something extra. But please support. It may 93% of our audience, this is not near where you are. And I get it. But listen, it could be you. It could be you next.
Is it a tax write-off? Is it a tax write-off?
No.
People, okay, because I didn't know if you're giving all of the proceeds.
Even if I were, you're buying Nothing Personal merchandise, but I will then, Nothing Personal will donate the proceeds. So it's a tax write-off for Nothing Personal.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a level of business here.
Okay,
but it's still
you're trying to do a nice thing.
I'm trying to do a nice thing.
I'm not criticizing you. I was trying to incentivize the audience to be charitable.
Listen,
I wasn't criticizing what you were doing.
Tax right off yourself. There are amazing organizations. You can give to your Red Cross. You can give to the World Central Kitchen. You can give. There's a ton of hurricane relief funds that you will find. I just think it'd be also cool. You can buy merch, and then we'll do it too. So you'd be doing several things. You'd be getting like Christmas gifts early, really early, and then Halloween gifts, new Coca Design sweatshirt gifts, and helping hurricane relief. All of that. DavidSamsonPodcast.com.
It's nice of you to do, David. It's nice of you to be charitable and not just be the person who enjoys when Robert Saleh is escorted to his car because someone in the world has been fired.
I'm a very complicated, layered onion.
Yes, you are.
What I can't stop doing is splitting the nothing personal picks of the day, though I did get a sweep 2 days ago. Yesterday, on the nothing personal pick of the day, we split. Somehow, Aaron Nola was not able to navigate the Mets lineup. It is beyond comprehension. The fact that he could not get his fastball to get swings and misses in the way he normally does, and the Mets were just on it, and he did not perform, and he was a favorite to do so. It didn't quite happen. However, we're going to go again. We're running it back. The Phillies, are the Mets really going to clinch? No, the Mets are not going to clinch in Citi Field. They may clinch at Citizens Bank, but they're not going to clinch tonight. Our pick of the day today is we are taking the Phillies in Game 4 to extend that series, but we lost yesterday's game.
I've got a great stat for you. Can I give you a great
Please.
stat? It would be amazing enough. Before last night, in the last 100 games that the Phillies and Mets had played, they had split them 50-50. That's not the great stat.
It's a good one, though.
No, I got one better, 10 times better. In the last 1,000 games they've played, they've split them 500-500 before last night. Seriously, not kidding.
I'm blown away by that.
Stunning, right? Stunning.
I'm doing the math of how many seasons that is. Because you only play 20 times a year.
Yeah, but 18?
So
is it 20?
You're going, it's
Yeah.
even for the math, you don't play 20 times
Yes,
a year. But let's just say
over decades, yes.
This is decades.
500 and 500 in the last 1,000. Last night broke the tie. Now the Mets are 551 to 500.
So is there now a 501 to 500? Is that really what it is?
Yes, 501 to
So
501.
is your hypothesis, does that inform who you like tonight? Is that why you take the Phillies? Because they'll keep going one and one and one?
That's right. No, I don't do predictions in baseball. That's ridiculous.
But it's never been measured that way. It wasn't. Was it 447 to 447?
I don't think they've gone back and forth each time. I don't think it's remained. I don't think it's remained each of them one game back the entirety of the time. No.
Coco, what was the season series between the Mets and Phillies? Do you remember as a Mets fan? Did the Mets do well this year? Coco's angry.
What's he angry about?
I don't know. I think we're 3 minutes away, and we didn't even get to talk NHL yet.
What is he? Is that what he's angry about? That we didn't adhere to his structure? That his beloved structure isn't something that we adhered to?
It's possible. I also didn't give my other pick of the day, which is that the Tigers have a bullpen game. The Tigers in a very important Game 3 over the great Guardians. You saw what the Tigers did with Kerry Carpenter hitting the home run of Class A, who doesn't give up home runs. Jeremy had some great stats of the day. Guess what? Alex Cobb is 35. Not very good. We're taking the Tigers again to take a 2-1 lead.
Really?
They're going to be back in Detroit. I think the Tigers will win that series, though I do like the Guardians. If it's the Tigers and Mets in the World Series, that's two teams with a lot of pixie dust. So I'm not exactly sure how you
There can only be one team of destiny, David. There are 6 wandering around right now, the Diamonds, thinking they're the team of destiny.
Do you have to win the title to be the team of destiny?
Yes.
So there's no second place.
That's correct. Well, you've said
So
there's
you
only
now
winners and
agree with me.
losers.
So this is where I'm going.
To be a team of destiny, yes, you have to be destined and then complete the destiny.
A team of destiny can't win the pennant?
Not second place. A team of destiny cannot finish second place.
I hope that somewhere we're recording this, because this sounds a little bit like you may agree with my position that there's winning and then there's misery.
I do not agree with your position that there's one winner and then everyone else in the world is a loser. I don't agree with that.
Only with destiny.
Just with destiny.
One destiny.
That's right.
And you have to be the final team standing.
That's right. That's right. You can't be a second place team of destiny.
You can't be a second place winner.
You can have a percentage of the winning. Destiny is different. You can win more than you lose. To be destined, you have to win the final game and be the only one holding the
Disney
trophy.
built a multi-trillion-dollar business over the years based on spreading destiny, sharing the pixie dust of destiny. You can share it. You don't need to be the winner to be the team of destiny.
I believe that Disney and Netflix and Amazon are all winning right now. They all get to be the businesses of destiny.
Because I have 4 packages a day from Amazon, and I'm breaking down boxes like I work at a restaurant on the set of The Bear, and I'm figuring out how do I possibly need more laundry detergent. It can't be that I need to buy it now. It just cannot be.
You're impatient.
Oh, but I
You're,
get it.
you're-
The
but
next
you're
day.
doing it for the artists. You're doing it for the musicians and the actors.
It's funny because I get it delivered to the city because you can get it same day, and then I'll schlep it elsewhere. It's just business. I appreciate you, Dan.
Likewise.
This is nothing personal.